Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I've put a video on, but I think with the new primary school year fast approaching, I thought it would be a good idea to put a video on and talk about the primary assessments that are going to take place this year in 2024 and 2025. So let's begin. So what assessments are going to be happening in the next year? So when your children come back in September, there'll be a few different assessments depending on the year group that they're in. Here are some that will be taking place. So when children first start in primary school, they go into reception and the school must do what's called a reception baseline assessment. This has to take place in the first 6 weeks after they enter reception. And it's a way of the children, the school deciding what the child can do at the very, very beginning of their primary school journey. At the end of reception, you have what's called the Early Years Foundation Stage Profile Assessment. And this is where the children are assessed at the end of reception to see out of the areas that they've been learning, where would the teacher assess them in regards to their attainment. I'm going to talk more about these in a minute. Also, we've got the optional Key Stage 1 tests. That's the SATs tests for Year 2, which are optional now. Schools don't have to get the children to sit them, but a lot of schools are still doing so. And then we have the biggie, the Key Stage 2 SATs tests, which are the SATs tests for Year 6 at the end of primary school. They're going to be taking place this year from May the 12th to Thursday the 15th of May. Multiplication tables check, which takes place in Year 4. If your child's in Year 4, they'll have this at the end of Year 4. And that's the 2-week period starting from Monday the 2nd of June 2025. And finally, the Phonics screening check, which is done in Year 1. And that's a 1-week period starting from Monday the 9th of June. So those are the assessments that will take place in primary school next year. And depending on which year group your child is in, were the ones you might want to be thinking about. So let's start off. The reception baseline, what is it? Essentially, it's a baseline assessment from the child's starting point that they have to do when they enter reception. And all they do is the teacher will sit with the child and do a quick sort of quiz with them, asking them some questions about a few maths questions, a few questions based on a picture and asking them what they can see in the picture. And it's all about language communication and mathematics. It's very short. It's a task-based, so they're not asked to write anything. They're just asked questions. They have to respond to those questions. And it's just basically the teacher's way of tracking the pupil's progress. So where is their starting point when they started in the school? And they'll be used to compare it to the end point when they leave in Year 6. The Early Years Foundation Stage Profile. So this is what the teachers will do in reception at the end of reception. And this will indicate whether the child's have got a expected level of development, which is number 2 there on the assessment rating, and number 1, which means that they're emerging level, so they may be slightly below the expected level for reception, and sometimes a child can be exempt from doing this. And that might be because they have an SEND need, or it's just not appropriate for their level of attainment to do the foundation stage profile for them. This profile is based on 7 key areas: communication, language, personal, social, emotional development, physical development, literacy, mathematics, understanding the world, expressive arts, and design. There are actually 17 areas, and those 17 areas fall under those 7 prime areas. Okay, lots of words there, but essentially it's a teacher assessment. So they will go through these different areas and decide where the child is at, eventually giving them a judgment, either expected or emerging. And that's just so they can track where the child is leaving reception and going into Year 1. Nothing you as a parent need to do to prepare the child for this. You can ask your teacher about it, and they'll be able to give you more details. So the next assessment, which is the Year 1 Phonics screening test. So when is it happening? This year, it'll be on the week beginning Monday the 9th of June, and it's just a week. Now, the children are not doing it for the whole week. It's just that the schools have a week to complete that assessment with all the children in Year 1. It takes roughly, I'd say, about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the child, and they'll just sit down with a teacher, and the teacher will give them a little quiz, a fun quiz with some pictures of aliens there you can see in the booklet about the words, and see if the children can read the words and sound them out. And it looks a little bit like this. So this is the piece of paper that the teacher will get, not the child. The child will get the phonics booklet, and it'll have the word, much bigger letters. And if it's not a real word, it'll have a picture of an alien next to it, because the teacher wants to assess if a child can read their phonics, not just with real words, but can also apply it to words that are made up. And that gives them a good idea that they've got their sounds. Now, here are the words from, I think, last year's test, and there's 40 in total. Now, in order for the Year 1 child to pass their screening, they have to be able to correctly sound out and read 32 out of the 40 words. They are allowed to put what's called sound buttons on, if that's something they use in school, which means that they can put a dot for a short sound and a dash for a long sound, and then try to read it. It's also, they may get some support from the class teacher if the teacher knows that they can read it. But yeah, that's what they've got to do for their phonics screening. So just something to bear in mind, maybe to ask the Year 1 teacher of your child how they're getting on with their phonics. Are there any sounds that they need to go back over with them at home? Okay, so now we move on to Year 2. So your child's now in Year 2. If they are in Year 2 this year, they may do the Year 2 SATs. Now, you can see there in the top left corner, it says optional, because last year the government said that schools no longer had to get the children to sit these as a statutory requirement. And if schools wanted to do them, they could, but if they didn't have to. So they're now optional. A lot of schools are still doing them. Some schools are not. I would speak to your school if you want to know if they are or not. But if they do, it's not test conditions. The child does not sit in silence to do these. Usually, because their children are very young still, they'll be taken out in small groups. The teacher will take them to a quiet area in a small group, and they'll do the quiz together. And these are the timings. As a guide, as these are the timings, the teacher doesn't have to stick to these timings strictly. But there are 2 reading papers, paper 1 and 2. Paper 2 being slightly more tricky. I can do another video to look at what it looks like exactly, or you'll find one on the channel already. Maths, there are 2 papers, 20 minutes, and this is just arithmetic. The second one is reasoning, that's 35. And grammar was always optional. Schools never had to get the children to sit this, but that consists of a 15-minute spelling quiz and then a 20-minute grammar quiz. Now, these tests for Year 2 will take place in the month of May. So schools have the whole month of May to get the Year 2 children to sit these. As it's in small groups, they do need a little bit of time to do it. So they have the whole month of May to do it. And as a parent, it's just for you to know. Okay, next, the Year 4 multiplication test. When is this happening? So this happens in the summer, and this year, next year, it'll be Monday, the 2nd of June. It'll be starting then, and it'll be 2 weeks from that date. And it's based on all the times tables from 1 to 12. And there are 25 questions, and children have 6 seconds to answer them. And this test is done on a computer or laptop. So essentially, the child will sit down, a question will pop up, they'll have 6 seconds to answer it correctly, and then another question will pop up, and they have to type the answer into the computer. So schools will have 2 weeks to complete this, and if you're preparing your child for it, you'll have until the 2nd of June to help them learn their times tables. Really good website that I would recommend is Hit the Button. And the reason is because this is an online times tables quiz tester, and it's timed, so you can get your child to answer questions quickly. And it's very similar to the format that they would do in the actual assessment. And it's also free. It's a free website. So just type Hit the Button into Google, and you'll find that website you can use to help your child prepare for this test. Okay, on to the big one then. So at the end of Year 6, they have the Year 6 SATs. And this year, it will be between the Monday, the 12th of May to Thursday, the 15th of May. 2025. Each day during that week, they will have tests to do, apart from Friday, where they'll get a rest. It's most likely going to look like this. So on the Monday, they'll have grammar and spelling. Tuesday will be the reading paper. Wednesday, there'll be 2 maths papers, arithmetic and reasoning. Thursday will be the 3rd maths paper. And Friday, the children get a day off. So how to revise, just a quick bit of information. I'm glad that you stuck around to the end of the video, because I want to share some quick tips on how to do well on this Year 6 SATs test and how to help prepare your child for it. In maths, there are 3 tests. The arithmetic's out of 40, the 2 reasonings are out of 35 each. The pass mark is about 56, around that mark. It's not always 56, but it's around that mark. Now, if you look at those scores, you can see that if a child did really well on arithmetic, which they can, and they got 40 or somewhere close to 40, to get that pass mark of 56, they'd only need an additional 16 marks, which means that they could get 8 on the other 2 tests, just 8 out of 35, and still pass. So get practicing the arithmetic. There are sample papers online that you can download, and you'll also find a video on my channel of a walkthrough of the arithmetic papers. Something to be aware of as well, that a lot of the questions are based around fractions, decimals, percentages, and calculations. So make sure your child knows those and revises them. You can see in 2023, most of the questions were about calculations or fractions, decimal percentages. Grammar. So there are 2 grammar papers. There's one which is grammar paper 1, which is out of 50, and this is all about English grammar, tense questions based on tense, word class questions, adjectives, verbs, nouns. We do have a walkthrough on the channel, so please check it out. And the test 2 is spelling, and that's out of 20, and the pass mark when added together is 36, so it's not that high. If they got 20 out of 20 on spellings, they'd only need 16 out of 50 to pass this overall. So do check out the video on the channel about that. And how to revise. Well, you can see the percentage here of how many questions. So on the grammar paper, there's 24% on word classes, grammatical terms. So you can make sure you revise that. Punctuation is a huge amount. 32% of the test is punctuation questions. Capital letters, full stops, commas, semicolons, colons, punctuating sentences, that kind of thing. And finally, the reading paper. So this is out of 50, and the pass mark is somewhere between 24 and 26. Last year it was 26, but it depends on how difficult the paper is and how children have done nationally to where they set the pass mark. And here are the percentages of questions. So the questions are broken down into these areas called content domains. This is what the children will learn, how to answer these types of questions. But if you see here, the main body of questions, percentages, so you've got 32% of questions were retrieval, picking out the information from the text, who, what, where, when, and another huge amount is inference questions. You will find videos on the channel, walkthroughs of the reading paper, but also more videos on these content domains. But if your child knows these questions, knows how to answer them, then they stand a good chance of passing the role. All right, thanks for watching. Good luck next year with the assessments that may be coming up for your child. And please put in the comments if you would like a video about any one of these assessments made, and I can make that for you. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll be starting to add more videos as the new academic begins. Like the video if you found it useful. And thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one.